thought that,
of course.
that goes through my head and a lot of people's head.
Right.
But the reality is that training volume and the hours that you put into the gym don't equate to better body composition.
My Muscle Project, welcome back. We are in Revival Strength HQ. That's the name of it officially?
Yeah, that's what we call it.
And we're with our 3-time guest on the podcast, Marcus Philly.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah. Business show and then twice on the main show?
No, just once.
Okay.
On the main. This is the third time.
Right.
This is it.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
And absolutely, it is a beautiful gym. Just if anyone wants to know what high-end sort of functional fitness looks like, I feel like this is like the definition of it right now. I mean, that's you walk in, beautiful painting, well laid out. Obviously, someone who built it was like OCD freak. Yeah, not suggesting anything there. But no, it's a pleasure to be here. I thought we'd open up this conversation. I wanted to know, how have you gone managing your training? What has changed now that you have 2 kids?
Oh, yeah. Well, the time allotment is very concise. It's like, this is my window to train, and it's less than it used to be.
Okay.
You know, when I had one, the first one, I stuck around doing double days for, I don't know, maybe 8 to 12 months. I was like still trying to hold down my old routines.
Yeah.
And then it became pretty clear to me that just, it didn't support my overall like health and wellness. I mean, yeah, I was like still at a competitive level of fitness, but I wasn't like trying to compete. I wasn't like gearing up for competition, and I had to just take a look at, why am I doing this? Why am I putting in 3 hours a day as opposed to 60 minutes or 90 minutes? Like, what's the cost benefit, equation look like?
Well, why did you think that was? That you were still pushing for that old routine?
It's just what I knew. It was what I knew for 7 years of my life. And there's still this like little thing inside of me. It's like, I want to get back out there. I mean, the first year of Noah's life, I was like, okay, well, I mean, she was born the day the Open started in 2017. I was like, maybe I'll get back out there in 2018. And then once 2018 season rolled around, I was like, I'm nowhere near ready to reinvest in that commitment, like the competitive commitment process. So that was when things took a shift, and I was like, I'm going to switch back to training, once a day. And it was still like a 2.5 hour training block, but it was like, rather than have these multiple time points in my day, I just switched to that. And then now it's basically 2 hours, 3 days a week, and then 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes, 3 days a week.
And do you think that aligns better with the functional bodybuilding message? Because like how I kind of see it from the outside looking in is, it's not really for the person that does want to do like 8 sessions, double days, hard training. It's more to supplement a lifestyle. Yeah.
Well, we'll get into talking about that because I guess I'd like people to understand that functional bodybuilding, or just the principles behind what we're doing, really span a wide range. I mean, if we just look at the clientele that we work with, both locally and internationally and around the country, we have plenty of competitive fitness athletes that work with us, and functional bodybuilding certainly fits in there. Mike Lee coached me for so many years, and I mean, even when I was doing competitive level fitness, like functional bodybuilding was still a big part of it. But I think for somebody like Gen Pop, or somebody who's just like looking to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle, I don't think you need 2 hours of training. I think you need less than what I'm giving. So I still have, competitive aspirations on that. I'm turning 35 in, 6 months. So I still am putting in the time and the energy. Plus, I love physical expression through movement, through training. It's a big part of what still drives my business and what keeps me creative and engaged in what I'm doing on a daily basis. So I probably put in more time than is necessary to just live a healthy, balanced lifestyle. But when it comes to just, like looking at somebody, when you talk about aligning with functional bodybuilding, I mean, that's taking a step back and saying, what does it mean to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle per person that we talk to? And in my case, like I'm definitely aligning with the functional bodybuilding lifestyle because I had to take a look at, I got kids, running a business. I've got certain hours of the day that I have childcare. So when am I going to fit my training? I can't consume, 3 precious hours of my day when I have my kids being looked after by somebody who I'm paying a lot of money to look after, look after them. And I've got emails to answer, and I've got, coworkers and employees here that need my support, and and a family, of course, that need me.
So do you see it ever going below what it's at the moment?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to hold on to and protect where it's at now, because it feels really good. I mean, if I could move more every single day, I would. And I think when my kids get a little bit older and they're more self-sufficient and they can maybe interact and participate in some of the movement that I'm doing, maybe not coming in and throwing barbells around, but going for hikes or going for a bike ride or that kind of thing, then there could be more movement in my life. It's just right now from a training perspective, it's this. And then, when it's like I don't have any desire to compete, I'm truly just using training as a vehicle to kind of make me feel and look the way I want to look. I could get away with 60 minutes a day.
Did you expect to some degree that dialing your training back from double days and all that would change your body? Like, was there even just a slight hint of, oh shit, like if I dial this back, am I like...
You might get some love handles?
Yeah, not obviously not for you, but to some degree, right?
I mean, that's a real thought that,
of course,
that goes through my head and a lot of people's head.
Right.
But the reality is that training volume and the hours that you put into the gym don't equate to better body composition. Matter of fact, when I was training less and like kind of our fall winter time last year, I was kind of nursing a couple injuries, and I just sort of dropped the total work that I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was like the tightest and the leanest I'd been in a long time.
Really?
Yeah, the stress of training, like the way people train, like that's not conducive to great body composition.
Right.
Doing good resistance training and low-level aerobic work where you don't stress yourself out, you can have a much better energy balance equation with your food intake, and you can manage that stuff. I mean, when you get done with like a punishing CrossFit competitive training session, what do you want to do? You just want to consume anything in sight that's going to help you refuel and be recovered. And that's not how you get super shredded.
Yeah.
You do bodybuilding and you eat clean foods that that keep your head clear and
Yeah, it was interesting. We had Adam from Mind Pump say, and he comes from like a PT Globo Gym sort of background, and basically all the work it seems like he's done with clients has been one-on-one, hasn't been in any group, maybe semi-private, but not more than 2 to 3 people a session.
He wants all groups to die. That was his word for word.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to say. He wished all group training would die. What do you think about something like that?
I mean, right now, the bulk of our business is really built around more individualized coaching. And I sell online, group templated training, but it's not really designed to be like done in big, massive groups. It's, as you know, it's like thoughtful training designs that an individual can take into their life and learn new methods. I'm not in that camp though. However, I mean, I left the group fitness world to start this business. But there's still value out there in having people work in sort of collective, communities where they either feel some accountability to a group, or they're motivated and inspired by a group, or they have an opportunity to like hide a little bit, because some people just aren't ready to fully expose themselves and their vulnerabilities around health and fitness. They're just like, I just kind of want to sneak in and just do something where I can kind of fly under the radar. And that may be an entry point for them later on to just sort of really dive in more deeply to their own health and fitness. There are aspects of group fitness that I think probably I would align with this gentleman you're talking about. It's like, that I want that to die completely. Yeah. I want the selling of lies to sort of die, which I think is connected a lot to group fitness. It's like, let's pack as many people in here as we can. Let's tell them that we're going to give them all the things that they need in this one little cookie cutter program. And then after 4 months, when they churn out, we've already got the next wave of people coming in, so we'll be good as a business. Like, that's we could all do with
Yeah.
getting rid of that.
Yeah. So for you, it's more valuable to have as long as a relationship as possible with the client.
As long as it's still supporting them,
Of course.
and they find value. I mean, there's been client relationships that I've had for 3 or 4 years where I've been like, hey, it's time to move on, and they would have stuck with me for a long time after that, but the relationship had taken a new direction. We've maybe gotten too comfortable with one another. I couldn't challenge them anymore. But yeah, I mean, I think longer term relationships with clients, coach client is super valuable. I mean, I had an opportunity to work with a couple coaches myself for spans of 3 to 4 years. And in each case, they ended for reasons that were outside of my control, but I was learning to the last day that we were working together. And I had more to learn for sure. And there are certain things that you can't learn in the first year with a coach. You can only learn in year 2 or year 5.
Right.
Because you have to build up this whole, connection, relationship, and base of knowledge before you can grow to some of these next levels.
And the trust as well, right? To
Yeah.
kind of be able to access different areas of your life that maybe at first it was surface stuff, strength and conditioning, movement, nutrition, and then how's your family, how's life stress going, other stuff like that, right? And that's kind of how you unlock greater levels of performance.
Yeah, and then you also evolve as a person, and there's new things that, when I'm a good example. It's like the last 4 years have all looked vastly different for me. In those 4 years, I got engaged, bought my first house, got married, had a baby, started a new business, had another baby. It's like at each step, what I have access to both physically, emotionally, and mentally starts to change. And a coach that's able to kind of go with you through that journey can help you discover new parts of yourself. And whether it's, accessing new physical traits or just helping you balance the lifestyle that goes along with your training to make you ultimately just feel happy and healthy.
Are you with a coach at the moment?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's coaching you at the moment?
Sam Smith from Big Dogs is now my coach.
Okay.
And he's we've been working together for about 5 weeks now, so it's relatively new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in like the business world, right? In the training fitness world, a coach is a mentor, but it's more like for fitness and nutrition. Do you have business mentors as well? Or have you had business mentors?
Yeah, I have. I would say that right now, the closest person I could call to a business mentor is Jim Kroll from OPEX Fitness.
Yeah.
So he and I have a good relationship, and we run an individual design model, an OPEX model of fitness here. We're actually a licensed OPEX gym, and so I have, I lean on him for support in that, and also he's just a really bright individual that understands the fitness industry, has his eyes in all the different areas and aspects that are going on out there. Has been somebody that has bounced ideas off of. I've been able to bounce ideas off of with regards to functional bodybuilding. And then in the past, I have worked with like business coaches, for specific, what started out as like, I need help in this specific area, and then grew to include, planning for the future, being creative about ideas and where I want to see myself grow as a business owner. But yeah, I mean, if I look at like who's my supports, like I've got a health, and fitness coach. I do like, weekly therapy with my personal therapy with a psychologist, couples therapy every other week with my wife. I got like a financial coach and, financial wellness sort of advisor. I mean, I definitely try and think about that. And then there's also like the naturopath, ND that I work with to kind of oversee my health in general.
That's it.
That's all.
You need a fashion coach.
What are you saying, bro?
That's the only thing I can think
need a
of left.
fashion coach.
Yeah, probably.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you
it's
like,
raining up here. You got a cut off shirt on right now.
No. I need the coach.
That's more of a practicality coach.
well, that's fine as long as he doesn't lean to the right. He's like, we're in like a mid meeting with like Waterfy.
Yeah.
It's like professionals, like tech company, and this dude just got a nipple, just full nipple on the side. I'm trying to catch his arm, like fix your shirt. And we're in this meeting. They're asking us questions. I'm like, man,
They're all wearing suits, and you're just nipple out at the table.
yeah, couch nipple. I think that's cool. I mean, I think the more you value coaching, if you're in the coaching business, right, it just feeds back into itself. It allows you to have an easier sales pitch to future clients, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's, in coaching, you know, it's certainly if you're working with professionals and people that really are in it for, you know, they're pouring all of their energy and their soul into their craft. You know, it's an investment financially. Like, you got to pay it for a service, and if you're a coach and you don't pay for a service like that or something similar, and you're asking people to make a financial investment, that's also there's like a disconnect there. It's like, yeah, well, I just named them all. You know, this is how much I'm investing every month, and I'm asking you to pay $350 a month to work with me to come to my gym. And they're like, you know, not that we ever get to that conversation, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this for a number of years, and I'm asking you to make a financial and an emotional and physical commitment to me. I stand behind it so much. Look at what I'm doing for myself too.
Right. Well, and so what do you look for in a coach? Because obviously there's so many coaches out there, right? They're getting hit with different coaching ads and referrals and all this stuff, all different directions. And they probably want coaches in all areas of their life.
Yeah.
What are some of the, like, maybe the factors or principles or characteristics of coaches that you find cross all domains that you just mentioned?
If I think about the people I just named that are in my life, it always starts with a coach that wants to get to know you specifically in the area of their expertise, and they don't rush that process. So, I mean, the first 3 to maybe 2 to 3 months of, you know, seeing my individual therapist, for example, it was like, I need to learn more about you. You know, yeah, we would dive into a specific topic, and I would have talk me through some things. I'd create like some tools that I could work with, maybe my anxiety. But then it was like, hey, I want to come back to, you know, you touched upon this part of your life. I want to know a little bit more about, you know, how does fitness fit into your life? So they just continue to get to know me better. Same thing with like the financial, wellness coach that I started working with a number of years ago. It was like before I had really anything to like, you know, show. I didn't have a lot of money or anything. It was like this process. Like, I want you to fill all this paperwork so I can understand what your financial position looks like. What are your goals? Where do you want to see yourself in this many years? And like meetings, like sit down meetings at Starbucks to get to know each other. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to just tell me like where to invest my money? Like why do you need to know about these things? But of course it's like, well, if you want to be at this place in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years with a family, it's like, then we need to start talking about the steps to protect you. Like, you need to have life insurance if you're about to get married and you're going to take on a mortgage. And if something were to go wrong and your wife is now left with this thing that she's got to pay for, like, you want to have something in place. And I'm like, So, I mean, I have 2 life insurance plans, and I'm 34 and I'm quite healthy.
Exceptionally healthy.
Yeah. So,
but surely you got a break on that insurance.
Yeah. Somebody's going to hear this and be like, dude, you're wasting your money. Don't do that. I'll get you a better deal or something like that. I don't need to hear that. But it's making that investment of time into getting to know somebody really well prior to giving them coaching. And so if you're looking for a coach, whether it's in fitness or any of these other areas, be wary of somebody who's just like, I got the plan for you right now. And you're like, well, we haven't even talked. Like,
right.
Do you even know me? And I really encourage our coaches to do that too when they're getting to know clients and onboarding new clients. It's like those first 90 days are just about getting to know them. Yeah, you got to get them some training. You got to get them moving. You got to, do a food profile and intake on them and understand what their life looks like. But all that's just information gathering. You got to really, learn about this person on many levels. If you plan to see them in 3 years as a client.
And how many of those coaches do you have, like specific objectives you're trying to get after? So maybe with your fitness, or they're mostly just like journey based, just trying to improve your habits along the way.
With the coaches that are
the ones you're still
support
working
me,
with.
yeah. With like Sam Smith, for example, like we kind of have clear objectives around my fitness. I mean, I've been doing it long enough where I could take it a number of different ways, but I've kind of shared with him, like, look, I have aspirations to maybe compete as a masters athlete in the sport of CrossFit or the sport of fitness, other events that might be out there. So please train me, with the October CrossFit Open in mind, or Wadapalooza in January, or something like that. With, my couples therapist or my individual therapist, those are just sort of like ongoing life support, navigate wherever we're at in our life, so that we can they're like stay healthy, not like I need to fix problems kind of thing at this point in my life and my wife and I's relationship. So some of it's a little bit of both. Some very specific, like I'm here to work on this, and then I'm here to just have the support of somebody to guide me for a long time. And I think that's where most coaching relationships should move towards, where it's like you don't have to have a specific reason and goal to require a fitness coach, right? Because you need to move, you need to like observe your health markers, and you want to stay vital for many, many years.
Yeah.
Stop thinking you need to have a Spartan race to train for in order to need a coach. It's like, no, have somebody that looks after you so that at any point in your life you could create a physical objective and be able to actually accomplish it, and not worry that when you're in your mid 40s or 50s you're going to start having this decline in your health because you didn't spend the last 10 years or 20 years building up a strong base of consistency through training.
Yeah, that's what we've started to find is once we took away the carrot of competing, it's like training took on a whole new purpose. It's like you have to really find out why you're doing it. And like, a lot of the habits were there, but like you said, it's the habit of like training exceptionally hard for a sport, not necessarily training just to be healthy.
Yeah.
We put some goals in place, but I'm curious to know, like, you do have some goals obviously you want to keep improving at, but you're getting to the point now, the tipping point, where eventually, you can't keep up with 27, 26-year-old Marcus, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
So how do you deal with obviously not being able to necessarily be as fast or as strong or as fit, but still improving?
Yeah. Well, the metric for my ruler has always been how good am I given the current landscape of my life. So that's like the qualifier. It's like right now I know, and each year I become more acutely aware of this, but like I know that I can't achieve those levels of fitness that I had 2-3 years ago because the time investment just it's not available. I still I wish I could, I mean I miss some aspects of that.
Yeah.
So it's I think more about, with regards to fitness specifically, measurements of success for me have always just been the ability to be consistent for long stretches of time within a training design where I can see small marked improvements in aspects of my fitness. And that has always been the most interesting part of the whole process to me. And getting on the competition floor and being able to execute well and get on a podium was always like a bonus, but it was really just like, I just did 3 months of a training block and I saw my upper body muscle endurance improve in that time, and I didn't miss a session. I was diligent about caring for myself with nourishment, recovery, practices, and that was that's success. Whether I can go and rattle off 22 muscle ups like today, which was my all-time best, it's less important to me.
Yeah. And what do you think the first stuff will be to go? Because for us, or for myself personally, one big thing that I always knew that I wasn't good at was a weakness, was having a strong squat. And so I'd always push it up, but it was always the one movement that would cause me the most damage. Lower back pain, disc issues, hamstring issues, knee pain. But I always had a reason to push through that because a stronger squat meant faster workout times or whatever. And eventually I just got to this point, and I remember being in this session and going down for this squat. It was after we got back from our last US trip, and it came up and something went in my back. And I just thought to myself, why am I trying to still get stronger in the squat right now when I could easily maintain it at 50% of the weight I'm doing now, still have healthy hips, and not walk around in back pain and have to get up every 10 minutes to stretch my back out because it's in pain.
Right.
Because I didn't have that why anymore. It was different. So what were some of the things that first started to disappear and shift for you?
I think I'm starting to tune into that a little bit more. I mean, I would say it's probably been about 9 months since I've like approached top end strength work with any like true intent to get, to either maintain old levels or, push those a little higher.
Yeah.
And I'm finding it difficult. Like
to get mentally up for it, or just to hit those numbers?
Both.
Yeah.
Like the numbers aren't there, and to get mentally up for it, like it's also not there. Like a very typical prescription, within my training now, and something that's always been there within my training designs with my coaches, my various coaches, is building up to like not a maximum, but something tough for the day.
Right.
Like giving me the client the autonomy to like say, okay, this is how good I'm feeling today. And there was a stretch of time within my training where it's like, if my coach said build up to a tough triple, it meant I was going for a 3-rep max today, whereas now it's like a tough triple. I hit about probably 2 or 3 sets before where I used to go, and I'm like, yeah, it feels good. I'm ready to move on. Let's get to some of the, breathing stuff or something that's a little that there's lower risk involved. Some of the, I think my Olympic lifting has still some, potential to return to some of my old numbers. I think in those first 2 years, the year and a half of really transitioning into like a functional bodybuilding style of training, I think my strength really grew in ways that I never really got to test at like a high level. There's just ways that I rounded out my strength and my fitness through approaching training with all the unilateral movements that we do, odd object lifting and just getting new loading implements that I knew at the time. I was like, dude, I'm a different type of strong than I was when I was just doing snatch and clean and jerk and back squats. So I look forward to sort of having, this next 6 months to see if I can,
put
translate
it all
that.
together.
Put it all together, right?
Yeah. How did you feel about the changes in the CrossFit season? Did they affect Revival or Awakening or any of the kind of the business aspect? And then how did it kind of affect you personally?
Initially we had a handful of clients that were sort of that block of athletes that had regionals as sort of like a pipe dream or like a big lofty goal. And I think there was initially a bit of a shakeup with that group of clients. But prior to the changes in the season, we had really we've been marketing ourselves as sort of a look good, move well business. Hey, we get clients that literally say like, hey, I want to look good and move well. Right? They want that functional bodybuilding mantra, in their daily life. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to do the cool stuff, but not at the expense of like having to get up every 10 minutes and like, oh, my back is just feeling tweaked out. So that was the bulk of our business to begin with. And then similarly with like online programs, that's what we're selling. So we have fewer and fewer competitive fitness athletes. That's not to say we don't coach them still, and that there's a lot of value that can, still be had in functional bodybuilding principles or parts of the training design for competitive athletes. From a business standpoint, it didn't make a dramatic impact, but I think it has made a pretty dramatic impact on the community at large. And it's not, I think the group of people that it's, hurt the most, or that group of athletes that were putting in hours and hours and tons of time into having this goal that was in front of them that really helped push and drive, their daily lives. And then the coaches that were supporting those athletes who are making a living doing this, and who were dedicated to this group of athletes. Now those athletes are not sure what they should be doing with their lives because this carrot's gone now to chase, and then those coaches are left maybe, being impacted pretty dramatically with their business.
Yeah. It's interesting for them. Honestly, it'll be really interesting to see what happens after this year's games. But what I felt, or what I saw, there was less of a kind of like what people wanted from a programming perspective is they didn't really want high intensity as much in like the WOD format. So like I think people still need some high intensity training once, twice a week, just for the general pop. But touching it like at a really brutal level, I think is now much better for them on like a bike or a roller or on a ski than, really breaking themselves in like open style workouts. At least for our clientele that we saw in the gym, it was kind of just like, why am I like getting really hung up on getting better workout times in like an open score and stuff anymore? Because they're like, for what?
Oh yeah, well, and that group you're talking about isn't even the group I was discussing. It was like, here you got your elite people, and the change in the sport don't really change what they're
making it.
They're going to make it, or they're still going to make in sanctionals, and they're still gung ho. Then there's the group that you're talking about, Gen Pop down here, who I think it's, anything that kind of takes the emphasis down a notch on going into the gym and crushing, mixed modal high intensity fitness is probably good.
Right.
The more we can preach a functional bodybuilding mentality for this group down here, more people are going to win. They're going to be stronger, healthier, sleeping better, losing body fat, not getting injured, wanting to come back day after day and feel, and get and move, right? Because we just need to get this population moving. Yeah. If they come in and do an open workout on a Monday, the vast majority of them are out until Thursday.
It's because they did a redo on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, they're just getting crushed, and they had no business doing it in the first place at high intensity, let alone the second time or the third time. But yeah, this middle group is, it's still that, we're talking about these other two that aren't really impacted, and maybe it's for the better.
And how have you felt about, more and more gyms we've seen, like literally implementing functional bodybuilding, like your functional bodybuilding into a group format. Have you been looking at it like, this is awesome, or have you found yourself cringing a little bit like this is not what I had in mind maybe?
Oh, it's so awesome. It's totally, it wasn't necessarily what I had in mind, but when I ran a group fitness facility, I basically prescribed functional bodybuilding for years. I was writing designs, and it's not a perfect system. And of course, I had to appease multiple different audiences, so I wasn't able to just write pure functional bodybuilding. We were still doing snatches and ring dips and handstand push-ups for a part of the population. And at the end of the day, you still can't give one design and make it work for 15 people, even if it's a functional bodybuilding design. There's going to be people that need adjustments and they can't quite get into the positions, or perhaps they shouldn't be doing an overhead press to begin with because they have bad shoulder mobility. But I think it's hugely beneficial. If I look at what are the core tenets of like a FBB program, most of them it's like lots of resistance training with controlled time under tension points for people, and various aerobic conditioning, variations on training. And so it's like aerobic and resistance training. It's like aerobic bodybuilders. Like that is just a pure recipe for success for Gen Pop. You can make that intense, like you talked about, like giving people some intensity a couple times a week, but aerobic intensity for somebody doesn't need to look anything like doing burpees and kettlebell swings as fast as they can.
Yeah.
And so I like it, and I love the fact that there are a lot of coaches all around the world that have kind of been drawn towards the functional bodybuilding movement, and so they're coaching this class of fitness where it's super high intensity mixed modal stuff, and then during their training lunch hour they're overdoing Awaken training series, and they're doing tempo squats and split squats and half kneeling dumbbell presses and 15-minute grinders that don't jack their heart rate up. They're pushing sleds and doing farmers carries, and their members are like, oh, what are you doing? That's different. And then they're like, this is really working for me. Why am I coaching this other thing to my members?
Yeah.
That's creating some really good conversations, dialogue out there.
Exact conversation that we've been having with our clientele.
Yeah.
As we shifted our training, it was like, oh, shit, I don't know if we can give this to these people anymore.
Right.
But they're kind of on the crack, which is like high intensity barbell wads, keeping muscle ups, pull-ups, that sort of thing. It's hard to get people off that. Like, they love it. It's like crack, and you got to slowly wean them off it and then dose it in there at correct amounts to keep them interested, to keep it fun. But really, we're looking out for their longevity. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they pay us for consistency, sustainability, and health. And if we don't provide that, if we don't discipline them almost in a way, then we're not doing the best thing by them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's all those things you mentioned that are like the crack that people want. There's going to be some people in your gym that deserve to be doing that. They put in the time. They lead relatively balanced lifestyles. Like, they have good mechanics. Good upper body pulling and pushing strength, and muscle ups for them is fine. I do muscle ups all the time, and I'm not worried that I'm damaging my body because I've put in the time in it. Yeah. So that's where it becomes challenging to just, you got your 15 people.
Right.
How do I hey, you 5, you guys got no business doing today's workout, but we'll fold you in, and so that's certainly why it helps us in a situation like we have here, where we're doing individual design. The person that has no business doing the thing, they never even know it's the thing to do. They just come in and they're like, oh, so my training I go to Revival Strength and I do goblet squats and I do dumbbell rows and I do hammer curls, and then I get on the assault bike and I do 30 seconds of 60 RPMs, and then I rest, and I do that 15 times and I call it a day. It's like, oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Whereas the other person that comes in is practicing their snatch technique.
Right.
And that's what they're supposed to be doing. That's what they want.
How essential is, or where does it fall on this? If you're trying to gain as much weight as possible on any sort of program, that's mainly bodybuilding based, whether it's functional bodybuilding or hammer strength or whatever you're using, a lot of people say don't do any cardio, right? How much of that do you believe is true? How much cardio do you think you can put in to maximize hypertrophy in that individual for weight gain?
Man, I don't even know if I'm the best person to ask for that kind of question.
Well, what's your opinion on it?
Well, the question I get from a lot of people is, what's one, how did you pack on all that muscle? Were you and stay lean? Were you in a calorie deficit? They asked me about calorie deficits.
I feel like you weren't.
No, I wasn't in a deficit. It's should I do a dirty bulk or a clean bulk? And I'm like, okay, well, I don't even know what that means, but let's go with it. And then, should I cut my cardio back if I'm trying to build muscle? And, I think James Fitzgerald said it recently on something. It's building muscle is so unnatural to the body. It's we're not designed to go out and build muscle. So anybody who thinks they're just going to show up to the gym and just they're going to get bulky, it's dude, you better, if you've come up with the recipe for accidentally packing on 10 pounds of muscle, let's talk. We're going to make a fortune, I had a female client come in who's in her mid-40s, and she was like, is it okay that I don't want to get I just want to be lean and toned. I don't want to get all bulky. I was like, don't worry. Your hormones and your age and,
it's not going to happen.
It's not happening. We could try really hard. It's still not going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never really, I suppose there was, my years where I was focused mainly on aesthetics, but I always wanted to just be lean.
Was that before CrossFit or since CrossFit?
Yeah, before CrossFit, I just trained really with an aesthetic mindset. I was more worried about my body composition than I was how much weight I didn't even know that there were people, compared squat numbers and shit. I think I need to lift a little bit more because I'm trying to get a pump, So just put a little more in the leg press. But that back then it was I wasn't about getting it wasn't about building a ton of muscle. It was just about keeping body fat low. So I still did a decent amount of like cardio back then. But since I got into sort of like the sport of fitness, and I saw myself in I would say the first year to 2 years of being an individual, competing as an individual athlete in the sport was when my body went through the most dramatic changes. And that was simply by increasing training volume and increasing caloric intake and increasing carbohydrate intake.
Yeah. Right.
And that's when I put a ton of muscle on, like dense muscle, that I went from being like a 182 to 185 athlete to like a solid 195 athlete. Yeah. And it was over those 2 years. And that happened doing a ton of cardio.
Yeah.
Like a lot. Like not even Metcons. Like sit on the bike, the Airdyne, and just, I probably put in 6 hours of slow, steady state a week on top of Metcons, on top of aerobic power intervals, and then, of course, some resistance training, but mostly just muscle endurance work. Like I wasn't doing any hypertrophy work at that point in the training. It was all just like, you know what the training looks like. But yeah, so
I think there was a pushback on that, on hypertrophy. I really think there was, because CrossFit was so the antithesis of the fitness industry. Yeah. Hypertrophy was bodybuilding, and Glassman didn't want anything to do with that. So I almost felt like he bastardized bicep curls in a way.
Oh, he did. Yeah. Absolutely. And what did you like at the James talks about the Black Box Summit, like the legendary Black Box Summit? His response to like, well, how do you think people should train to be competitive in the sport, like be good at the sport? He's like, well, do bodybuilding for 6 to 10 years and build a base of, like absolute strength, and teach your muscles how to contract like many thousands of times, and then get into the dynamic contraction work stuff. So it was like, and that's really where I came from. And so that was what gave me a lot of success early on, was that I'd already done, almost 10 years of squatting, elbow flexion, elbow extension. I mean, handstand push-ups. I had done more dips than anybody, that had been coming into the game. Yeah. So I could figure out how to extend my, arms upside down. It wasn't that hard. Yeah. But I definitely got that and I remember just kind of regurgitating the stuff I read in the journal, which was like, well, a calf raise, you can't generate a lot of power, so we don't use calf raises. A bicep curl, there's only so much power you can generate from a bicep curl, but if you do a thruster, now we have intensity. These are real words that were in there, and I'm just spewing it to the members, and they're like, okay, whatever. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what do people really need? They need to they just need to move under load, and they need to move in controlled enough ways for their specific, experience and physical, abilities. And in some cases that looks like bicep curls. And now I prescribe, decent number of bicep curls. And we don't have a calf raise situation, but I got a couple clients I give calf raise. I wrote some training designs this morning for a remote client, and she's working out at a Globo gym. I was like, get in that Smith machine. You're going to stand with that. You got to load that sucker up, put some plates underneath your toes. You're doing standing calf raises. Let's get it going.
Yeah. So across the board, just as a general, I know we don't like to do this, but just to give people an idea, if they're on a functional bodybuilding program with you or one of the coaches, what's the general percentage split of slow controlled contractions versus dynamic contractions in a week, for example? Because CrossFit's basically 100% dynamic contractions in the early stages.
The slow ones are just walking down the stairs after a session, and you're so fucked. You can barely get down. That's your only slow contractions on your quads.
Right. All right. Well, I'll play into the question because my instinct is to be like, well, everybody's.
It depends.
It depends, right? But and the kind of the sample or the example is looking at sort of how we structure a weight training series, and then designs built upon that basic structure for individualizing that. They come in and they do a warm-up that is relatively slow and controlled. There's not dynamic contractions in there, and those warm-ups will include tempo prescriptions, and they'll include unilateral movements or even isometric holds. They'll typically be a core strength movement. It could be like a traditional barbell lift, or it might be something with dumbbells, but you got your A, B sections of training. Those typically will always have slow, controlled contractions in them at various percentages of people's maximums, depending on the rep schemes that we're using. But A1, A2 superset, B1, B2 supersets, these are core strength movements as well as some accessory work or structural balance work. Where dynamic contractions tend to show up are in, conditioning work that we might give people, but still even there's control points that are put in. So, yes, we assess somebody's ability to handle any type of dynamic contraction. What can you do? You can't do a kipping pull-up, but you can do a kettlebell swing, a basic swing. Okay, great. So they're doing swings, strict pull-ups, and, maybe a walking lunge. Let's call that something dynamic. And we do it we prescribe it in a way that is controlled for that person. And if someone's highly skilled, then their training might start to look a little different. They might have a snatch as their focal point of the day, so that's very dynamic, and they're working on 70 to 80% of their maximums. They might do some structural balance work on top of that, which would look like single arm dumbbell overhead squats, maybe some upper body pulling with dumbbells or with cables if they have access to it, and then their conditioning might have some kipping gymnastics in there, and some barbell cycling. So that's how it kind of really can span the range of skill levels that we work with. But in most instances of like Gen Pop people that are getting functional bodybuilding prescriptions from us, the whole day looks relatively controlled and paced and not super dynamic until they've built enough of a training base to handle certain movements. And then when we get into those, it's basic swings. It might be a box jump with a step down. It might look like them doing a dip under fatigue, like a bar dip or a ring dip, or things odd object stuff that we throw into a lot of our clients' programs where they're just picking up sandbags and throwing them over their shoulders.
Yeah. So with your coaches at the gym, I mean, I haven't watched many of them coach yet, but I imagine that for you, there almost has to be like an agreement to some perspective that CrossFit in the purest form is not really the best training for most people. Is there some cultural way that you instill that, or you test for it when you're kind of interviewing people or bringing coaches on?
I mean, only the people that are all here have gravitated towards our message.
That's what I feel.
I didn't just like put up a sign and say, "Hey, we need a new coach," and they show up like, "Yeah, I'm a CrossFit level 2, level 4, whatever," and I'm
a
really
flow master. Let's go.
yeah, that would be great actually. Flow masters are, the ones that I've been, I've had the privilege of like learning from at the level seminars that I've gone to and that I've known. They're outstanding educators. Whether they're, in general, they actually understand like the core principles of CrossFit on such a deep level that they can speak to it for like, people that are very like low skill all the way up to high skill. But I just love watching how they control and command a room. It's always impressive. But anyhow, back to your questions. I don't need to instill it in them. Like they're drawn to it because of the message that I speak so clearly all the time, and in what I've done for years. And we all have been educated a lot through the OPEC system of CCP system, and that's pretty evident and clear within how we all have been brought up in our education system too around coaching. And it's not to say that like what you said, like CrossFit, it's like its purest sense. High intensity functional movement performed constantly varied. I forget the. I do. I'm sorry. Constantly varied functional
movement at high intensity.
Performed at high intensity.
Yeah, performed at high intensity.
I like that you forgot the high intensity bit. You just removed it from your brain.
There's something. There's a medium high,
medium low intensity.
At a medium speed. We do a lot of medium speed here. The dial's always at medium. Yeah. No, we turn it up for sure. So it's not really something I have to like remind them, be like, hey, you shouldn't be giving that person CrossFit. More of a conversation that ends up happening is like, I'll see somebody give a prescription, a coach, and I'll inquire, but like, hey, talk to me about like what made you think that was,
Right.
you know, why did you go that direction with that client? You know, if I see somebody doing a box jump, and maybe in the back of my mind, I'm like, is that person, you know, ready for the demands of that? And I go talk to my coach because I know that they haven't been training with us that long, and I haven't seen them doing a lot of like absolute strength work in the double. They don't even know how to back squat yet.
Right.
Yet they're box jumping. Let's talk about what the choice was there. It's like, oh well, Steven, he's playing volleyball on the weekends in like a competitive adult league.
Right.
And he's jumping. He's going up and doing blocks. I'm like, so I want him to just train a little bit of that here. I'm like, great decision. Cool.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's like, oh, I just, you're right. Like I didn't really think about that being like a smart decision.
Yeah.
And so we have those conversations usually way ahead of time. It's not like, hey, let's retroactively go change a program because that didn't look right.
Right.
We're having those education meetings where it's like, hey, what's the value of doing this type of movement for somebody, and have we considered doing all of these other types of contractions that could benefit them in the same way and reduce risk for that client.
That's awesome.
Do you find there's more disagreement over nutrition perspectives or prescriptions amongst your coaches, or do they leave that stuff out of their prescriptions?
No. It's they don't leave them out of their prescriptions. It's definitely a conversation point and an area that we dive into with all of our clients. There's not a lot of disagreements amongst our staff in terms of styles, like of what's right and what's wrong. We have a very unified core group of professionals that believe in the same things, and I don't want to say I'm not the only educator of them, but I play a big role in the education of the coaches here, so that we have a consistent message that's going out to all of our clients. Now, like how that message gets delivered and what tools each coach uses to keep compliance high with their clients, or to check in about nutrition prescriptions or sleep protocols that they might those can vary. It's like the delivery of that stuff that varies, but the core message, like there's not one person on the staff being like, well, I think it's really important that you try keto. Like, I'm a big keto guy, and we don't have like I'm a big low FODMAP person over here, and then I'm the I'm
vegan. Yeah.
I'm the vegan, right? No, it's like we have a unified system of beliefs within coaching, and then what's fun is seeing how each coach expresses that through the prescription or the design in the gym. And that's one of the great values of having like a physical space. I mean, we do a lot of online coaching, but seeing the physical space down here, watching all of the various clients come in that are coached by different people on staff, be like, oh, that's how Brianna is helping so-and-so develop their upper body pulling strength, but this is how Shauna's doing it. And they're obviously not totally divergent, but they're just different choices. And those are fun to learn from and to kind of continue to push each other in different ways as coaches.
Nice. Now, I know we started this conversation with kids, and I'm aware you've got only 10 minutes left before you got to go pick them up. So we'll race through the final 4 questions.
Okay.
Did we give them to them ahead of time? Yeah. So first question is the interview question. If you had an opportunity today to sit down and interview anyone that's alive today, or who would you get and what would you ask them and why?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys sent those ahead of time, because that was so I'm totally fascinated by this Alex Honnold character.
Oh, the free solo?
Yeah.
Free soloist, yeah.
You saw the movie?
I did see the movie. But what's interesting is like I'm so fascinated by him, and I'd want to have an opportunity to just like connect and talk with him. And he's done, so many interviews at this point that a lot of the questions have been asked. I think I'd be more curious to like go and spend time with him as he's approaching, a climb or the preparation for a climb, and just sort of, when there's opportunities to sort of like see these really unique qualities of him as an individual and be like, dude, what were you just thinking right there? Because that was, I could just see that there was something very unique that was going through your head. I just want to like understand just a little bit more of his process, but be in the moment with him. Because when I saw that you know, it was like just the perfect execution of like this, like a high level master of his craft. And there's a few people that really are doing that at such a high level in a physical expression, but also like there's this emotional and mental expression that has to happen in his sport that I haven't seen in many other instances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a unique scenario, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm very thankful you haven't seen it in too many other people as well. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a safe thing for everyone to try.
Oh no. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And he's I mean I have to think that there's something there's something very unique with his brain chemistry and neural wiring that allows him to even have the opportunity to do something like that.
I think what you touched on right there is perfect. I don't think he is quite able to communicate his perspective on the world and life, or at least he wasn't able to in that movie.
Yeah.
I think that you would have to observe it
Right.
to understand it, as opposed to hear it from him.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of like a loner, right? So he's not really a good
Right.
communicator necessarily, right? Which is generally a
Yeah.
trait of loners.
Yeah, I think my interview with him would be like, can I just like sleep in your van with you for a few weeks and just see what happens?
Yeah. I think.
Please don't make me eat your vegetarian
Oh
gruel.
God. Yeah, that is as a nomadic and, in my opinion, a very unpleasurable lifestyle. But hey, it's the path of the warrior. So
That's right.
second question is, what is something that you do every day you feel like currently is essential to the success of any day?
My well, growing up, one of the things that I really valued as part of my nuclear family was that we did meals at the dinner table every night together, with maybe an exception here or there, but the Monday through Friday was like we had dinner. And in the first year or the first 2 years of having our daughter, it was like we were just struggling to like get her fed and get ourselves fed, and we just didn't really create a good routine. My wife and I, mostly my wife, was constantly saying, hey, we need to make this a priority. And maybe like, I don't know, in the last 3 to 4 months, we've made it a priority. We all sit down to have breakfast together, and we always sit down to have dinner together at the table. And both of those are, I would say that they have been the moments in my day now that make me value being a father and having a family more so than any of the first 2 years of my daughter's life. Like,
Wow.
Yeah, and it's connects me with parts of my childhood that were really, positive, and there's a lot of research that's surfacing, and my wife does all the research. I don't, but she shares with me stuff that's really valuable for me to know as a parent, that there's, if you want to look at like what is the predictor of success in many different forms for children, test scores and staying out of trouble and getting into good colleges, and it's not how much time they spend on homework. It's whether or not they sat down at the dinner table and had conversations with their family on a consistent basis. And that like hit me pretty hard. I was like, yeah, wow, we need to do this. Not for just them, but like it's filling me up in a way that is I didn't expect to. So I've prior to that, probably for the last 18 months, I had just been like just rushing through my breakfast and rushing through my dinner, which is terrible on your digestive health, and it's terrible on your stress profile.
Yeah.
And it's not making me healthier or getting the most out of my food. And so this is like killing a lot of birds with the same stone. It's really powerful.
Awesome. And what did you have to change in your life to be able to consistently do it? Because I'm guessing you probably skipped it before because you were busy or things were coming up.
Yeah. It was. Well, I think it was my daughter getting to a point where she could actually sit a little bit longer and then like consume food and not like be just I gotta. And I think the thing that needed to change was, I don't know. It's like starting any new habit. We just needed to do it enough days in a row to make it a pattern. And I think that actually having the second baby helped, because we're like, dude, we need structure. We need rhythm. We need to create the structure, because if we have two that are driving us in all these different directions, we're gonna it's going to be even more chaos.
Mm.
So yeah, the baby was born in December, and we're like, let's implement this now. And it's cool because she's laying on her little pillow, like kind of watching us have this little family interaction.
Yeah.
It's like we have 4 people all sitting together.
It's awesome.
It's yeah, I don't know. I kind of get like a little teary just thinking about
Special.
it. It's super special.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Third question. What is something recently that you changed your mind on that for a while you held as a strong belief?
Right. I think I'm really. It's been a slow transition for me, but really starting to recalibrate my thinking around how much fitness is actually healthy. And we talked about like, hey, is 2 hours a day the right amount? It's like, I think it's becoming like, wow, people don't need to train as much as we've told them they need to train. They don't even need to come into necessarily an hour-long fitness class to like check the box, and recognizing like how much more the nutrition, lifestyle, stress balance piece of people's health and fitness equation, how much more important that is than the actual movement that they're doing, and that we really need to just use the movement as a vehicle to get them more aligned with those other areas that are important.
Yeah.
And if the movement takes like too much energy away from them, that they can't invest into those other areas, and it's the wrong amount. It's the wrong prescription. It's too much. So yeah, that's. It was hard to start my fitness career as a CrossFit coach and create that as my benchmark of what we should be giving people. And then, of course, I went the competitive route, which was just more and more and more volume. And it's like, well, I'm training 4 hours a day, so if you train 90 minutes a day, that's good. It's like, wait a minute, it's all messed up.
Yeah.
It's like you might need to move 20 minutes a day and then eat really perfectly and get some sunshine when there's sun out and sleep 8 hours and, have great family relationships or relationships in your life, and you're actually gonna be able to do shit when you're 60. You're gonna actually be able to be really fit.
Yeah.
If you start that in your 30s and you do that for 30 years, my God, what people say all the time is like, aside from I want to lose some body fat, I want to look better naked. It's like I want to be able to, play with my grandkids.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, doing 90 minutes of hard contractions for 5 days a week, like, I don't think that's where you're going to be at 60.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be doing that.
Yeah, you're going to get on the plane to go on your holiday, and you're going to be like, thank God I'm not going to the gym because I'm smashed. Like, that's not what you want.
Yeah.
You want to be looking forward to your holiday so you can climb mountains and go skiing, right?
Totally.
I think that's, you probably 5 years ago, you knew it intellectually, but it's not until you lived through it and evolved and became a father of multiple kids and had a more booming business and had more responsibilities that you really empathize and understand it more with the most common client, which is the Gen Pop client that comes in, right? Where you're like, oh, shit. Okay, maybe you do need less training. Maybe you need more of this, and like maybe I need to put more emphasis on the nutrition thing,
Sure. Well, and
cool.
people like hanging out here. It's a good environment. Like, they want to be at the gym because there's good people there.
Yeah.
And so they just like decide, I'm going to fill that time with more movement. It's like, maybe you should just come in and like, when I see like clients that their workouts are stretching out to 90 minutes, I'm like, let's tighten that shit up. Come on, let's get them out of here in 50 to 60 minutes for sure. And that includes like a warm up and a cool down. And then if they want to chit chat by the water cooler, that's fine.
Yeah, there is. I'd noticed, like, as soon as you start training a long time, training can become very lazy because you just like chuck in exercises you don't even need.
Yeah.
You fucking throw in a couple of phone calls you didn't need to make, and there's something too like just shortening it because you prioritize the exercises and you bring more focus.
Nice.
Yeah.
Final question: what is a book you're reading at the moment, or just a book you like to recommend to people in general?
The book I just finished reading, I've recommended to so many people. It's called Food. The book. What the Heck Should I Eat by Dr. Mark Hyman.
Okay. I know Mark Hyman. I think he's on Joe Rogan's podcast a few times. Or maybe Tim Ferriss or something. Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. Anyhow, it's just as a fitness professional, dealing with most, even athletes and Gen Pop, they all have, Americans specifically, but even, I'll speak to the Americans specifically, the Food and Drug Administration and food education and health education around, what's right to eat and what's wrong to eat has been messed up for decades. And it's simply left people very confused, and with these like kind of deep-seated beliefs in how food impacts our health that are just wrong, and they're false. They've never been supported by scientific research, medical research ever in the history of mankind. Yet they're things that are like so deep-seated in there. Like everyone is afraid of fat.
Yeah.
People think low fat's good. Cholesterol kills.
Yeah.
It raises heart disease. All of the various forms of sugar out there that are marketed as healthy, people still buy that bullshit. And even educated people, they still are stuck in these ways. And it's all absolutely backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like, if I could just press a button and everybody would understand that that's fucking wrong, and it would just, and we could just switch that, and they'd be like, oh my God, they'd look at they'd look at sugar the same way people look at cholesterol today. If we could just instantly change that, a lot of people would lead healthier and happier and longer lives, and we'd have a lot less suffering. And back to the book, I think the book just like it for the people out there that need to hear it from a doctor, or they need to hear that there's evidence behind this, that it's not just a fad diet, it's not just keto or this other thing or paleo, but it's like, well, this is what the science says. What you believe, what you've been told for 50 years is actually wrong, and it was never right, and this is the reason why it was never right. It's like it breaks it down really, really simply, and it's what I've, the number of conversations that I've had to have over the last 10 years as a fitness professional where I'm like, well, fat's not really that bad for you, and here's why, and actually it's sugar, and like reasoning with people and drawing diagrams on the board and giving nutrition talks, and I think the book, not that this book is going to suddenly change everybody's mind, but it's pretty powerful. And just a client, like one of my clients who's been with me for 6+ years, who we've had plenty of the nutrition talks, we've had a lot of them. And recently he had some blood work done where he got like an inflammatory marker or something that like was elevated. And he asked his doctor about, well, how do I fix this? And he's like, well, that's just how it is. And he's like, really? And he came to me, he's like, is there really no way for me to fix these things? And I'm like, well, we could take an approach. Why don't you read this book? Or I just gave him the book.
Yeah.
And he like comes in, he's like, oh my God, I had no idea. Everything's so backwards. All the things you've been telling me for so many years.
They're right.
They're right here in the book.
You
I'm like, awesome, he just needed to hear it from a different source. Person. So I don't know. Check that one out.
Nice.
Sick.
What was the name of it again?
It's called, I think it's just called Food.
Right.
Food, the book. And then the subtitle is What the Heck Should I Eat?
Right. Okay.
And Dr. Mark Hyman.
Cool. All right. That's a wrap. Where can people find you if they're not following you already, Marcus? Best place.
Go to revival-strength.com and sign up for our email list. You get a lot of free goodies coming at you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on. It's an absolute pleasure having you.
I'm so glad to meet you guys.
Yeah.
And you are way taller than I thought you were. I mean,
I'm way shorter.
You're about as short
what
as
I
expected.
I think
You're shorter.
It's a CrossFit thing. Every fucking show we've had so far, they're like, "You're a fucking giant."
Yeah.
It happens all the time.